Hello to everyone and greetings to listeners and audience of our background on Ukraine meeting that we are hosting today in the studio of Твоє, МІСТО Медіа-хаб, city of yours, Медіа-хаб, together in cooperation with Media Center Ukraine. And today we have a great guest to talk about the context of Ukraine and context of this war. We have Pavlo Sheremeto, who is former Minister of Economical Development and Trade of Ukraine in 2014, who is the founder of Kyiv-Mohyla Business School, one of the also founder of School of Public Management at Ukrainian Catholic University. Also, Pavlo Sheremeto is former president of Kyiv School of Economics, and also has his own strategy consulting Proriv in UA organization. So Pavlo Sheremeto knows a lot about economics. You've spoken just maybe a few weeks ago. You had a conversation in this studio with our journalist Andriy Sachuk about the different dimensions, economical dimensions of this war. And today we would like to speak with our global audiences about how this war impacts Ukraine economically, but also how it impacts the world today. Let's start maybe with what we have right now at the moment. What consequences do you already see as an economist in different areas of our social life in Ukraine? Let's start with Ukraine.
Well, the consequences are heavy. The consequences are harsh, as is natural for a brutal war. Ukraine was subject and has been subject of a brutal attack, barbarian attack, middle-aged type of attack. I mean, like when you think that this is the 21st century, I sometimes switch on, say, Apple Music 1 and just hear their conversations, and then I'm thinking, happy people. Like, really, I envy you. I was like this. I was dreaming. I was creating. I was innovating. I was writing. I was enjoying life, and all of this is there. And I'm happy for these people. But we are in the war, and the Ukrainians are dying in large numbers. And actually, the problem is that we don't even know in reality, in honest numbers, how many people are we losing. Because during the wartime, at least it's customary not to announce your casualties. So we don't even know. But then when the president says it's 100 people per day, and then some of his advisors saying it's not 100, it's 200 people a day, and you multiply it by 30, and it's 6,000 people per month, and we're already 5 months into the war. It's heavy. It's brutal. Now that's the human cost. Then Russia is destroying methodically our infrastructure. And I guess more to come. I mean, people are saying that for the winter time, it will be much worse because municipal utilities will be targeted and destroyed. I don't even know what is the worst case scenario, but one of the scenarios is destruction of electric utilities, heat utilities in the city like Kyiv, and it used to be a disaster. It used to be. I don't even know what disaster is, Because when you're thinking about 6,000 people being killed, that's a disaster, okay? Now, 4 million people during the Ukrainian wintertime have no electricity and no heat and no water. That's a disaster. But at least they're alive at the moment, okay? So maybe it's not such a big disaster, but again, back to Apple Music 1. How do you explain this? And you're talking about millions, okay? And we have to think now, like, what do we do? Like, we create heat centers for people who can at least come and have a hot soup once a day. Or we are talking about buses and trains that evacuate those people where, and who is ready to host them. And how about utilities in other cities? Because I'm talking just about Kyiv at the moment, but there are 25 regional centers. Some of my friends are telling me, for example, Pavlo, do you have relatives in the villages? Because that is what can save you, in a way, So now we already have 5 to 6 million Ukrainians who left the country, out of whom maybe 2 millions returned, but 4 millions did not. And as they go to school in September, there is a diminishing chance that they will return. Now, think about this in 5 or 10 years. So we have basically all the pensioners, because they're not leaving. Like my mother says, like, no way. I told her, look, everything is ready. Leave in February. And she told me, no way. And she's here in Lviv. She's
so you mean
here.
The most proactive, those who are in a very in age to work and
earn and support.
They will go
support
out
the
of
pensioners, because the normal ratio. I see the normal ratio ideally is 3 to 1, 5 to 1 of young people supporting the pensioners. Ukraine before the war was heading to 1 to 1. And after the war, I guess it will be the opposite, which means we will have very hard time, to support. Well, in 5 years, I'll be close. I'll be close to being the pensioner. This is just kind of to add a little bit of joke into the otherwise very, very gloomy forecast and scenario. And yet we have to survive. We have to survive. That's where the question is. When Ukrainians are wishing each other victory, I admire them. I sometimes repeat it because that's what we are saying at the moment. But honestly, the first thing we need to do is just plain survive.
You mean to survive as human beings, or
yes, as a country, as human beings? Yes.
What do we have to do to survive also as a state?
Well, support the armed forces. In whatever way we can do it, either participating. I've just seen my friend who was, I can tell you, you know him quite well. It's Alexander Kobzar, who was he was in the uniform, and he's serving in the army now. Just came to visit his relatives and do some stuff that needs to be done here in Lviv. I guess for the first time in 5 months. So I'm so thankful for the people like that who are serving in the armed forces. I admire people who are supporting them in whatever way they can do, including paying taxes, because that's support as well. I'm not even mentioning, but I should mention all the volunteer work, all the aid that we are getting from outside of Ukraine, both government and private. So all of that is absolutely needed, but first of all, to strengthen our defense, because if the army loses, there is no state. Now, at the moment, seems like the army is keeping the line, maybe even advancing a little bit. Now, what do we do next? We have to look into the government budget situation, which is gloomy as well, because we have at the moment, $5 billion deficit, which will be growing. Because, to buy gas for the winter, we need $2 to $4 billion. And yesterday's news, our oil and gas company, the public oil and gas company went into default, just to be technical here, which is not a good news. So I think in this particular case, the government needs to think what is more effective way to provide gas to the public. Because at the moment, the prevailing theory it's a nice theory, it's almost a socialist theory, that we will subsidize your gas. But then I'm asking, why the hell you're subsidizing my gas? I can pay for it. And I guess I'm not the only one. No, really and honestly, You don't need to subsidize my gas. I mean, let's figure out who really needs subsidies and let's help them financially. But let's keep the price, the market price. I hate this current market price. It's yes, I know it's too high for everybody, for the whole world. It's, by the way, I don't know when you want to switch into global consequences, but that is a global consequence. Not even the oil price, it went down a little bit, but the gas price is enormous. But that's where it is. I'm an economist. We don't argue with the market price. I mean, that's where it is. Okay, so you pay or you don't pay. You can have wood. You can have coal if you find it. You can do whatever, but that's your private choice. Okay, but then you figure out who really needs help, and these are poor people that we support through our taxes, and the government support through subsidies. But not everybody, because then the company goes bankrupt, the oil and gas company. It's not a good solution.
Okay, but then we need also, at the same time, we need quite enough people to be able to pay enough this higher price. Do you think we will have, what conditions should also the government create, or should we all do to have enough people who will not need the subsidies? Because as you mentioned just a few minutes before, we have this loss of people who stay or will probably stay not in Ukraine, these 5 million or probably more.
Yeah, so they will be warm. So that's a solution. That is a solution for them. Okay, so again, back to the question how to survive. If the survival is to be in another country and warm, then again, thank you to all the other countries that accepted and are hosting Ukrainians, okay? Because you keep them warm. By the way, looks like the decisions in Europe that they would lower the temperatures from their standard ones, so it will be cooler for everybody. But at least it will not be below zero. It will be sub-zero. It will be possible to survive. So that is okay. By the way, I'm still thinking. I mentioned about my mother. So far I would say okay, but if that would be an issue, I will tell her again. Just leave. So my point is that if those Ukrainians that mentally, physically, if one of the solutions would be to leave temporarily, let's say, for the winter time, okay, then why don't you think about this? Now, I also mentioned, okay, villages, because villages are equipped with stoves, okay, and coal and wood, unlike urban apartments. Urban apartments are not equipped with that, right? So again, that's a backup solution. We are not talking about the business at the moment. Yes, obviously, the fact that we lost so many people is not a good fact. It doesn't help. It doesn't help. But if at the moment the first and the primary question is how to survive, then that solution is the solution. But spring will come. Okay, spring will come. We know that for
Definitely.
sure. And of course, then will be the issue. How to bring those people back, and how to attract them back, and especially the young ones, because for the reasons we mentioned already, they are needed in the country. And my answer, and you know it, is economic freedom. Give freedom to Ukrainians to do business. Because if you do business and you do it successfully, you create jobs. And this is not a theory, because some people say that's a theory. No, it's a practice for as long as mankind lives and uses money to pay salaries. Okay, so that's how it works. You create enterprises, companies, whatever they're called. You create products. You compete. You lose. You create another one. You win. I mean, you know it from from all of this. Okay, and you get paid. You invite other people. You pay them. You have all the headaches. How to pay the salaries, especially in a situation like this when the whole market is going down. Yeah. And that's why, by the way, we thank you and we glorify you, because you every month have the same headache. I'm pretty much, especially when I was more in private business, now I'm more in analytics, just doing solo work more than in the past. In the past, I had people to pay salaries to. So every month it's a challenge, especially the wartime, pandemics. You have all of these crises. You think how to do it now, and then we get all of the problems with the tax authorities, with the security authorities, like as if we are enemies. We're not enemies. We are not enemies. We are saving the nation. I mean, like entrepreneurs, you are saving the nation. So what the country needs to do now, so that in the spring there is a greater chance that more Ukrainians will come back, is create a better conditions for business to flourish in the future here in the country. Now,
what do you mean by these conditions? Defiscalization, or what should it include?
Well, look, I'm trying to find the most instrumental, methodic answer so that our listeners and watchers can check themselves. There are two rankings of freedom. One is Heritage Foundation, another is Atlantic Council, just to be specific, okay? They have specific criteria what needs to be done. And we are talking about monetary freedom, by the way. When you have inflation 20% like we have now, this is not good, because our savings are devalued, and we know that quite well, right? Don't we? Yes. So again, when then you're saying, what choice did we have? Well, we didn't have much of a choice. National Bank had to print Ukrainian currency so that we have money to pay the military people and to buy the military equipment. So we didn't have much of the choice. But another alternative, of course, would be to get more aid into the country. Well, to work more precisely with the budget, both in terms of income and expenditures. I already covered that. Like, have a smarter tariff policy, okay? So that you can optimize your expenditures. Maybe you don't need to spend so much on tariffs. Now, I'm quite sure you don't need to spend so much on tariffs, and I guess I proved how to do it. But that's one. Now, of course, that look, investment freedom, financial freedom. By the way, we have poor grades there. These are not good. everybody's talking, even our people that left the country and now they start to appreciate everything which is good about Ukraine. They're still saying that we are not interested. We don't even know who is the tax authority in that country because we don't see it. You don't need to see it. You don't need to see it in Ukraine, to be honest. You know why? Because 98% of taxes in Ukraine are paid automatically by businesses. When the tax inspection comes and squeezes the business, that's only 2%. That's a fact, okay? And that's the fact everywhere. But like other countries, they understand this and they're getting to live with it. They say, okay, maybe we don't need so much pressure. But in Ukraine, is that a heritage of Soviet Union, the communist system, where entrepreneurs were seen as speculators, and speculation was a criminal offense, and it's still in the heads of so many people, especially government officials on the different levels of public service, from the villages, up to the national government. I mean, this is not the way to develop national economy. So again, here we're speaking English and we are addressing mostly international audience. I guess the help that we need is more examples of the role of the private business has. For example, like Marshall Plan, something we covered in the previous discussion. Ukrainians, so many Ukrainians think that this is government help that saved Europe. I'm telling them that, look, Marshall Plan is very important and was very important, okay? But it was 2.6% of GDP, on average of 15 countries, meaning 97.4% was something else. Okay, we take the public part, which is, let's say, 35 to 40%, that's in Europe, the usual case, okay, out, because it's a public part that's distributed by the government, okay, collected from private business, but distributed by the government. Let's take it out. Now, the rest is still 60 to 65%, which is private economy. So my answer, who rebuilt Western Europe after the Second World War, is not George Marshall, with all the due respect to him. It's a private business in Western Europe.
So it was not the US.
US played a very important role. Look, I don't want to diminish that. Because, look, by the way, a very interesting fact. US paid the same amount of money from 45 to 48 than from 48 to 52, which is called Marshall Plan. Okay? Now, obviously, from 45 to 48, it was not very successful. It was actually, to be honest, unsuccessful. Lots of money, I wouldn't say wasted, but not used very effectively. Okay? Now, suddenly, 48 to 52 was very effective. Now, why? And people say, because it was a plan. Because it was a plan, and the plan was, and it's, by the way, it's the 75th anniversary. This summer is the 75th anniversary of George Marshall's commencement speech at Harvard University, when he announced the idea of the plan, because there was no plan yet. Okay? And the idea of the plan, in his speech, and I quote, was to strengthen free institutions. Strengthen free institutions. That's the idea of the plan. The idea of the plan was, was not to deliver aid. The idea was not to help the government. The idea was not even to ensure security, which was part of the plan, but this was not the central idea. The central idea was to make the free institutions to prosper, he said, all around the world, but obviously he meant the free world. Okay? Now, same thing about Singapore, because Ukrainians, they see one person who created Singapore miracle, and that is Lee Kuan Yew, Prime Minister. Okay, and I'm saying, look, I'm quite sure that Lee Kuan Yew, with all my due respect, really, I admire the guy. I don't think he knew how to cook chicken rice. I don't think he knew, because he didn't need it. Okay? Now, somebody cooked chicken rice for him. By the way, there is a stand the hawker stand, if you know what that means. It's like a kiosk in Ukraine with chicken rice in Singapore, famous, world famous, Michelin ranked, okay, 1 star or 2 star. Okay, now for me, this person created Singapore miracle, and millions people like this. Okay, Lee Kuan Yew play the role, of course, play the role, okay? but not to see those people is also a mistake. Okay, so we need to enlighten. We need to show to our fellow Ukrainians the role of these people. We need to protect those people. We need to develop and nurture those people. And by the way, here it's good that we have this decentralization trend in Ukraine, because like our city or your city, Твоє МІСТО, is doing rather well in this respect. Rather well. Like today they announced that they're giving the vouchers, support vouchers to the businesses that relocated and need compensation. By the way, because that's still the answer to your question, what needs to be done. During these months, I'm so happy to read mayors' posts in social media.
You mean Lviv mayors?
Not only.
Oh, mayors in general.
Mayors in Western Ukraine. Please come to us, please come to our city. We'll be happy to host you. If you want to relocate your business, please come to us. I promise you everything. Here is my number. Even down to this. Here's my number. I'm joking. Okay, I also want to have the number of the chief of the tax authority in the city together, because what happens then, the tax authority comes and starts to pressure this business. And the business turns to mayor and says, hey, we have this pressure. And the mayor says, look, I mean, it's a national authority. I have no influence, which is true, So this, all of this have to work together. How to ensure the best conditions. And look, it would be almost funny that I would mention China in this case, and I would mention Deng Xiaoping, whose principle was not the government aid, by the way, not industrial parks, as many Ukrainians think. No, he said the principle was let the 1,000 flowers bloom, was his principle. Let the 1,000 or millions flowers bloom, whatever the flowers are. We are not creating at the moment the standard, because that would be stupid. That's what they do in Russia. Support Putin. That's a standard. If you're not doing this, you're dead. Okay?
And we just have to create conditions for all these millions of flowers.
Now, China, of course, there are issues because the standards are still there. But that's their issue. We are talking about Ukraine. Yes, the more flowers we have, the freer conditions we have, the stronger survive. They scale up. They become bigger. They become more successful. They start to export. That's where the development is for me. And I guess for you too.
You mentioned about export, and before this horrible Russian aggression invasion, full-scale invasion, we had maybe around 20 to 17%, or you can tweak it if I'm wrong, of the world export of grain. Ukraine was producing, so around 12 to of grain.
Okay.
We were strong in exporting metallurgy. So these are the markets that we are losing right now. I was traveling this weekend. I had to go to Germany for 2 days, and all the way there and back, I was seeing all the fields that were not used to have grain before. They are now full of grain. In Poland, in Germany, so it means that they will take that part that was produced by Ukraine before. How will it impact our economy, and will it be enough to create only conditions for free economic development?
Well, that is a free economic development. The freedom to export our grain from Odessa outside of Ukraine and into the world is about economic freedom too. But here we are talking about external freedom, not only internal one. But that is an important aspect. Now, look, agriculture. My friends who are experts in that tell me not to worry. They say that Ukraine is so big and so important that for 5 years our place is secured. Nobody can. I mean, look, it took us very long to have this position. It was not 5 years; it was many more years. So they say 5 years we are quite secure. Don't worry about that. I worry about something else.
If the war lasts longer.
I worry. I'm worried about the different industry which prospered during this 5 months. I mean, agriculture is in trouble, metallurgy is in trouble, IT is prospering. Okay, last year for the first 5 months, it's New York Times numbers just this week. Last year, IT brought $2.5 billion into Ukraine's GDP. This year, amid war, everything, all the calamities, all the disasters, IT brought $3.1 billion into Ukrainian GDP. Okay? Now, the problem is that I don't know how. I mean, that's good that you can travel, but most people cannot. I cannot. I cannot leave the country. No, it's not a big problem. The problem is for IT business leaders who cannot travel, because so many things are still decided. I mean, look, we could have a Zoom session for this, but you wanted me here, right? I mean, there are reasons for that.
Exactly.
There are reasons in personal contact, especially after pandemic. People miss personal meetings, and if you're not there, then some Indian business is there, some Polish business is there, some Israeli business is there. That's where you lose. And you lose it now, not in 5 years, because Ukraine actually is not that big yet in IT. It's growing, it's getting bigger, but it's not that big yet. So this is also part of the economic freedom, but I cannot criticize it, because again, we are in the war. So I understand the Ministry of Defense that put this ban on leaving the country. But again, my suggestion is, maybe find some adaptation, maybe find some, footnotes, some exemptions, something that that allows people not only in the IT industry but basically FMCG, whatever industry, because we want not the grain to be exported from Ukraine, but we want to have oil to be, the vegetable oil to be sunflower oil to be exported from the country. Yeah, but you need the buyers, you need clients, and for that you need to meet people. You need to understand the tastes. Tastes are different in Italy and Norway. You need to figure that out, and in order to figure that out, you cannot figure that out by Zoom call. You need to live there. You need to talk to people. You need to cook, by the way, and just see the difference and taste it. Okay, and then you say, okay, that's different. So that's what worries me even more than agriculture.
Do you think we can change it, except before we get to victory?
It's the question to the Ministry of Defense. I don't have the complete understanding, and I don't have all the facts. They have many more facts than I do. That's for them to decide. But I want them to understand this. Okay, hopefully they do, and hopefully they take this into account. But they need to understand this, that because these people. Look, $3.5 billion. Some part of that are taxes, and that these are taxes that are supporting the army. So it's important that we keep this money flowing into the country.
To finish with maybe more Ukrainian scale and before going to a global scale, where do you see a blue ocean for Ukraine during wartime? Because we see that it may last much longer than everyone was expecting.
We don't talk. It's so difficult to talk about blue ocean in the red bloody ocean of the war. I mean, what can be redder than the war? So again, it's the matter of survival. But I mean, look, not to go too far away, guys. What you're doing is blue ocean. Seems to me. I mean, you're working with different audience. You're working with different formats. It's almost like you're working in different industries, and you're trying to combine that in a kind of specific, your unique mixture, which is your innovation. You know, because if there would be too many of you, then I guess I don't think it will be so successful. You know, it seems like you keep your, in a way, even monopoly in some ways, but that's, you know, it's not a government granted monopoly. It's not like they gave you the source of oil or gas, you know, and you have a monopoly on that, okay? Because that's bad. Or they gave you kind of the, you know, the urban area to build the residential building, and it's only one, and it's only here. And you know, and you don't want to guess, you know, how it was exactly decided. Okay, it was not like this. It's just you, with your friends, with your colleagues, figured out, most probably through trial and error, you know, what would be the most successful. And guess what? You know, you're doing less of what was not successful and more what is successful. Okay. So that would be my best advice at the moment. Or, you know, who am I to give an advice? But just an idea to the Ukrainian businesses, and not only to the Ukrainian businesses, is just, you know, in many ways. And by the way, people don't understand this because people think that blue ocean is, you know, some kind of creative, super creative exercise. You create something fancy. No, no. Because the essence of blue ocean is the value innovation. Value innovation. What is value innovation? You deliver, like you just mentioned that, you deliver a specific value. By the way, I mean, that's YouTube at the moment, right? So it's free.
Yeah, YouTube and Facebook.
You deliver it free.
Yes.
Free.
Yes.
Well, you still find the way to you know, to pay the expenses through other means and through other ways to get money here, right? And that is what blue ocean is, by the way. But you basically eliminate the payment, you know, and you're trying to reduce the hustle. Okay? Now, Putin took care to eliminate and to reduce many things in Ukraine, okay? So, because, by the way, that exercise, when you are thinking with businesses what to eliminate, what to reduce, what to raise and create,
it's extremely
the first two are the most
hard.
difficult. Not create and, you know, not create.
I do
because
agree.
Creating, everybody's creating, you know, it's no problem. It's what to eliminate and reduce, okay? Now, the war, the economic hardship, you know, the businesses that I'm working with at the moment, I tell them, look, you have to work under assumption that you will be having half of your current clients, pre-war clients, half of them with half of the money. So basically you have 25%. You have 1/4 of what you used to have. And
you have to survive.
And you have to survive. And it seems like this is a valid assumption, even for energy giants in Ukraine. It's not exactly 25%, but they lost 30 or 40% of their business because the companies are gone, manufacturing is reduced in the country, and you have to survive. Mm-hmm. So how do you survive? You survive through the creative part. You know, you're looking, let's say, okay, energy. You're looking into alternative sources. You're looking into green sources. You're looking into Ukrainian gas. By the way, you know. And we already mentioned the state giant who went into default. One of the reasons is that they were not able to develop, apparently they were not able to develop the gas business here in Ukraine, unlike private businesses in Ukraine. But who did it? You know, I will not go further because we're still talking about the source of gas and all the implications. But anyway.
It's red ocean, it's not a blue ocean.
It's it's a state ocean. It's a different story. But anyway, the point is, let's take this kind of the essence of whatever strategy, including blue ocean, and the essence is how to deliver the best value to your clients and to your customers, and the best value meaning lower cost, because that's also part of the value, especially if you have the global competition around. So Ukraine has good conditions for that at the moment, and those who will survive this will survive whatever.
And create a great country that will flourish economically.
Hopefully.
Getting back to the world, why many people say that they feel kind of world fatigue about Ukraine, because for 5 months everyone has been talking and it's already enough. And as you even mentioned in one of your recent interviews, that maybe soon, when there is a possibility of a recession, prognosis for a recession in the US, American taxpayers will think of delivering something to their children, not helping Ukraine.
Yeah.
Why should the world care about Ukraine today? And does this war impact, and how it impacts the world or different parts of the world economically?
Look, let's divide this story into neighbors and the world at large.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Now, Ukrainian neighbors to the West understand us, almost all, a part of one country. All the rest have very sensitive and keen understanding of what's going on, because they understand they are in the line being next. By the way, even the country that seems like not supporting us very much, even they understand, and they voted for and supported Ukraine being the candidate, being granted the candidate status for the European Union, because they want to have Ukraine in between them and Russia. There's no question about that. Everybody agrees to that, because that's what we are doing now. Basically, honestly, in a way, in many ways, protecting them. We are the first to take the hit, and if we lose, the next hit would be them. And by the way, it's so good that Russian leadership is quite blatant about that. I mean, they're quite straight. Baltics, Poland, I mean, they don't choose words announcing next targets. Okay, so this is easy.
Mm-hmm.
And these people mostly get it. Okay? Now the world at large, this is more difficult. But let's say, why Singapore, I already mentioned, why Singapore supported Ukraine so nicely?
By the way.
Yeah, because they understand we are a small nation. Half of the world away from Ukraine. So we could be neutral, as say Africa is, many countries in Africa. Playing games like India is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? For understandable reasons, by the way. But Singapore took a straight, undoubting position that invasion is bad. Why? Because they said, if this case, if this precedent survives, meaning if Russia wins, that means the end to the rule-based order in the world. By the way, as we know, Singapore is not very much into full-fledged democracy. Okay? So, because we are saying we are protecting democracy, it's about democracy. Yes, but with that, you cannot find too many friends in the world, especially, in these parts of the world, Africa, Asia. So it's a different story. It's a story about rules-based. And even with China prospered during the last 30 years, which is a miracle, by the way, because hundreds of millions of people moved from being poor, they moved into the middle class. Hundreds of millions of people for the first time in the mankind history in such a short period of time. It's not only China, but it's China first of all, okay? And countries around. Now they did it because they could predict, because they could prognose, because they could forecast, because the world was predictable, because there were rules of the game. Okay? Now Russia brutally demolished all of the rules, because the rule was, and I guess still is and should be, you do not invade an independent country. You know, it sounds funny for the United Nations Security Council member violating this basic rule, okay? But there was a rule. And then Singapore thinks, okay, if that becomes the new rule, or at least the precedent,
that is
then
a
imagine
threat to everyone.
Imagine, what can be in the world. Okay? Now, look, for big players, for strong countries, maybe there's not such a big concern, but it is. It is. Even for the United States, it's a concern. Even for Germany, it is a concern. Even for China, it is a concern. Because then you cannot predict. You cannot play. I mean, if you don't know what the game is, how can you play? Well, you still play, but then the mighty wins. The ones with the stronger force and the bigger weight. And the smaller countries, especially, they hate it. They don't like it, of course. And for them especially, and Europe is full of small nations. Full of small nations. Maybe it's one of the reasons why Europe is supporting and understanding us, and we are thankful for that. But they understand that again, they might be next, whoever that is. By the way, back to the Marshall Plan. In 1948, Soviet Union was a concern, but not as big as Germany. So when they were thinking about security guarantees, France, for example, or Britain, or Italy, they asked the United States to guarantee security not only against the Soviet Union, but first of all against Germany. Okay, Germany during the last 40, 50 years proved to be a peaceful, rule-abiding partner. Basically the backbone of the European Union. Good, but that was not the case, especially in the first half of the last century. Okay, again, for the same reason that if you're big, you can do whatever. Now Europe says enough. Well, it's important that Germany to itself said enough. Okay, we are not doing that any longer. We promise not to do this any longer. Okay. And that's why it's so important when German Chancellor actually kneeled in Warsaw. It's a famous photo, apologizing, because how can you convey that we are different? I mean, that was one of the messages. Will I see Russian president doing that in Bucha?
Never.
No, we will, because only then we can get some of the signals that maybe there is something changing. Until we don't see it, we don't trust them. And even with this gesture, I mean, talk to Poles, they're still not very confident. So it will take centuries. I
just wanted to say that.
But anyway, and that's why rules are important, because we don't have centuries. We don't have centuries. We have years, we have months, we have weeks to the winter.
Does it mean that helping Ukraine and just being really unite for all over the civilized world is today, and be much more proactive in terms of supporting Ukraine, is even much more important for can we say that it's much more important for their future development than these prices going high today that it is being discussed across Europe, across the US, that the fuel goes up, that I don't know, I've just heard in Germany that people discuss that bread price has gone like few cents up, but then it is they are feeling that it's a almost not a tragedy, but it's a not a disaster, but sometimes it's for some people it's very close to that. But can we say that, do you understand correctly, that if the rules will be allowed to be broken further, it will be much bigger disaster also economically?
Yes.
For
Yes.
all the world.
Yes, and that's the point. Because I mean there are voices that this inflation will be forgotten in 5 to 10 years if Ukraine ceases to exist on the map, and then whatever happens to the next line, and they cease to exist, that will be remembered, okay, forever, I guess. Now, however, having said that, we in Ukraine, and I want our foreign audience to to hear this, okay? We in Ukraine need to be humble and empathic. What do I mean? We need to feel the pain, because it's a pain. For Germans who love saving so much, they have this famous phrase. It was pfennig, like a cent. Pfennig saved is pfennig earned. Okay? Pfennig, cent. 1 cent, no, not euro, not dollar, not mark.
Yes, it's part of Germany.
So you just mentioned that bread went up by a few cents. It's important for them. And see, I'm already trying to be empathic, because I can say, who cares about you? I mean, forget your cents. No, because this is not what Germany made Germany, okay? As an economic powerhouse. What made Germany such a huge economic powerhouse is that they saved this little cents, okay? And the fact that you're using them at the moment, paying them, I wouldn't say unnecessarily, but that could have been avoided, of course, if not the war. It's painful. And we need to feel this pain in Ukraine. We need to feel this pain. We need to appreciate that. I see and hear our European friends are saying that you're thankful. So that's good, because the worst thing would be when they would be telling us you're not thankful, which they do say about some of the countries that received even more help much more help than Ukraine. We shouldn't be like this. We should be very appreciative, very thankful for every cent we get, because those cents are meaningful to them, even they are big. By the way, that's why it takes so long for them to decide military aid and financial aid, because they are counting cents, because that's their nature. Okay? So we have to appreciate that. We have to understand that. We have to understand that these are the parents that could have bought a croissant, a toy to the kid, but they are, they're allocating this money, to help Ukraine. It's unbelievable, by the way. It's unbelievable. And we are very thankful for that. Yes, back to your question. Yes, this cost is still lower than full-fledged war, which I think is coming if Ukraine fails. So, let's all of us spend now as much as needed. By the way, we are paying with our lives. Let's do what's needed now, so that we can save for the future, so our kids can live in a rule-based world, not a wild, barbaric, middle-aged type of environment. Okay.
Great. I think that is a great end to this conversation, and let's just really all go and do it. And
thank you, Taras.
We do believe everything is going to be all right.
Everything will be all right, because the light prevails over darkness, and life prevails over death. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, and thank everyone.